I'm using number 2 brush for this painting. And the reason for that is it's small enough that I have the level of control that I want, but also it allows me to get enough watercolour into the bristles so that when the two colours touch each other, they're both still wet. So you'll notice I'm starting with the lightest colour first in the centre, and all I'm doing is I'm dropping a heavier colour next to it. And what I'll do is in a moment I'll blend those together. They jump a little bit. Remember, it's very important that the two colours are wet when they touch each other. That's what allows them to blend nice and subtly, overlapping one into the other. I'm just going to introduce those lightest tones, and you can see they've run into each other, they've blended into each other. Now, it doesn't matter if you go over the black lines at this point, because you can tidy them up afterwards. So now I've just done my first two colours on there. You can see a little bit of tonal change starting in the centre going towards the edge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add slightly darker tones at the edges. And I'm just going to drop those colours on. You don't want too much paint on your brush now. You just want to introduce a little bit. Notice how only the very tip of my brush is making contact with the paper. I'm dropping a little bit of colour on there. And if it isn't spreading out as I want it to, you just give it a little bit of push with the tip of your brush. So remember, this has to happen while both colours are wet. So the darker colour touches the lighter colour and it instantly wants to spread out. And there you have, that's the first bit of blending done. So I'm going to go into my next shape again. I'm going to start with a light colour in the middle, lighter than it's going to be in by the time I've finished. I just want to make sure it's nice and watery, nice and wet the paper, and both colours touch. So you notice there, my brush wasn't actually coming off the paper. The tip touches and it moves around very lightly. I'm being very gentle. What I see quite a few students doing is they can be a bit rough with the paper, and they're almost scrubbing the brush against the paper, and then what happens, you get this horrible bobbly effect, and essentially what happens is that they're ruining the paper by overworking it. So if you feel that's happening, it means you need to be light with your brush, and you need to stop your work, and you just need to let the paper dry a little bit. So that's my first two colours. Constantly looking back at the original. Now, I won't be able to get the tones, the hues of blue exact, because the palette I'm using just won't allow me to. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create something that's similar to the style of Chancer. Remember, at the research stage, it's about exploring an artist's style, and it's about understanding it. Right, I'm going to talk a little bit less and concentrate on my painting there. So the edges, I'm going to drop in those darker bits. Too much paint there, so I'll just move that around. I'm going to have to drop some more of the lighter colouring in a moment to get it to blend better. That's alright. Back to a lighter colour. Spread that out. And the brush doesn't come off the paper at all. Just going in various directions, very short marks. Please avoid just going one direction. If you do that, you're going to start to get very stripy work. I'm going to introduce a little bit more of the dark colour, and I'm purposely going to actually go onto the black here, just to make sure I'm getting right up to the edge. Very quick. skipping around. Never stay in one area too long, constantly moving. I don't want an area to dry. A little bit of that lighter colour again in the middle. I do want to get it a little bit darker. The edges I'm going to go a little bit more darker than that. Just want to get a little bit more contrast. Part of the reason this is blending is because I've taken my time to mix my palette up. I've got my colours already prepared. They subtly change from one to the other. If the blues were too different, then they wouldn't blend so easily. I'm just going to add a little bit of darker blue now at the edge. I want to make that a bit more watery, because what I want to do is I want it to really disperse. Spread out the other colours. See, give it a bit of a helping hand. It's quite warm in here today, so the paint seems to be drying a little bit quicker. And I want it to. Blend this a little bit in here because I think it's a bit of a hard edge. Oh, there you go, and that's blended. That's my second colour done. So I'm going to do this longer one now, and I'll just do this a little bit, and I think I'll finish there, because I just want to show you the technique today. Alright, for this one, I'm going to start off with a bigger brush. Just because there's a more area to cover, I don't feel with a small brush that I could work fast enough. So starting off with my lighter colour again, very quickly. I'm actually going to cover pretty much all of it with that. So I've got that lovely watery surface to work on top of. I'll drop in some more colour here. And that brush is just darting around, not staying in one place too long, but I'm being very gentle with it. Definitely not scrubbing the paper. Now, Stephen Jansen's work is actually based on mussels, so I would suggest you go away and have a look. It's quite interesting. So if you imagine the mussels in an arm, if you peeled away the skin, that's what these abstract shapes are based on. Because I've spread water everywhere, first of all, a very light watery colour, I'm actually finding this one's easier to do than my previous ones. I think probably because I know I have to work faster because it's larger. It's forcing me to be a bit looser with my paint, a little bit more relaxed with what I'm doing. Just got a stray hair of brush there, caused me a few problems. You can see this is much faster to paint than acrylic, or even using pencil crayons. Right, so now I'm going to go darker. Now, watercolour should have a transparent quality, and to get the richness of colour, sort of the energy in the colour, you build layers on top of layers. Well, that's the way I teach it anyway. I also say to my students that when you're looking at your watercolour on the palette, it should look like weak cordial pop. And to test it's watery enough, I get them to tip the palette slightly. And if it runs when it's at a slight angle, it generally means that you've got the ratio of water and paint correct. Just going to darken up the edge a little bit more, but not much more now. I'm going to jump colours. To work a lot faster now. I'm going to add a little bit more water to my paint because I said the rooms are very dry, very warm today, so the paint's starting to dry. Something else I noticed with students, they get the paint mixed really well, and then as the lesson goes on, the water in the paint starts to evaporate, and they don't think of adding extra water to it. It starts to really have a negative effect on the quality of the painting. Just going to blend the centre bit a little bit more in a moment. It's looking a bit cloudy. Back to the lighter colour. Gently work over it, getting rid of that cloudy effect. And that's the third one done, and finally I'm just going to do that very little one. Okay, starting with my lighties, I'm just going to dab that in. Hardly see that. I'm going to go with a darker colour, just randomly spread it about. Just a little bit, just a dab. And that's how I'd paint in a Stephen Johnson style. So you can see it's quite a fast way to paint. I think it's very interesting to personally, Stephen Johnson's work, and I think it can lend itself to a various topics. So whether you're doing still life or whether you're doing nature, I don't see any reason why you couldn't use this artist and take your initial drawings or paintings down an abstract journey.